In 3, 2, 1, action.
What if
Oh, whoa.
there was... Oh, sorry. Welcome to the weekday. What if there... Picture this. Go with me.
Is this a Steve Jobs thing?
Yeah. Imagine
Yeah.
a world
A phone.
full of the
an
dreamers.
iPod. A camera.
And an internet device all in one. Revolutionary. No, imagine for a second that you were to walk around with a camera behind the scenes of Bay Hope Church for the weekday. What would you see?
People doing a podcast
Nah.
called The Weekday.
But outside of that, what
Oh.
else would you see? You would see us texting on social media. You would see us sound checking things, and then you would see us riffing on the fact that Justin still hasn't seen any movies.
I mean, it is my favorite pastime. Like,
Finding movies that Justin hasn't seen.
then and like for whatever, and I think it says something about how referential we are in our conversations just normally, because like most of this is just you and I talking, and
True.
how many references
I'm pretty
we
lost.
have in like just a normal conversation.
I mean, Melissa and our wives have said the same thing as well.
Oh, I know.
By the way, welcome to the weekday. Already in progress. We've been doing show for 5 minutes before we said action.
Right.
Yeah, they've said the same thing though.
Right.
Yeah, I'm lost a lot when I hear you guys
Well,
talk.
that's just because it's tough to keep up with. Tough to keep up with the witty. The
Right,
witness,
yeah.
You know, we're just
Yeah,
so
it might
witty.
not be you. It might. I think that's us.
Yeah, that's an us
that's
issue.
thing.
I mean,
welcome-
it might not even be movies. I'm just kind of lost.
It's a good show too.
Oh, have you ever seen Lost? No.
Do you know that's a TV show where the plane crashed and the smoke monster and the panda bears,
Wait,
polar bears? You haven't
I know.
seen
Smoke
it.
monster.
I know there's an island.
There is an island, and they have to go back.
We have to go back.
We have to go back, Jack. We have to go back, Jack. Yeah, well, this is episode 70-something. We're going to get to some other stuff where we're not bashing social media this time, thankfully, for the last couple
Well,
episodes.
we might.
Probably.
Yeah.
It'll end up there. All roads lead to the evils of social media
I
right now.
plan to.
That's not why people tune into the weekday. What people do tune into the weekday
On
for,
social
however,
media.
yeah, that's true, is part 2 of unsolicited marriage advice. Because, as you know, here on the weekday, our good boy Justin, him, video medium, audio that we just flashed to a picture
Yeah.
of Justin looking oh so cute in his school picture.
Verbal picture.
You were going to do the heart. Do the heart.
Oh, wait.
Do it. It's
It's not
there.
working. What's going on?
Oh.
Wait, your heart is
Oh,
working, Justin.
wait.
You have a heart.
there it is.
I was on the wrong camera.
I like how it was like flashing.
Fading. Yeah, well, it was
Like
the,
it's like
a-
a
it's like a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. The internal computer was trying to interpolate. Like, wait a minute, I don't know which shot to go to here. This is freaking
Look,
out.
there it is.
Yep. It's great. No, our good boy Justin gets married in less than 2 weeks, right? It's 10 days.
Yes. Less than 2 weeks. Yeah.
I love the fact that when he's talking, he's
Yeah.
just going to do this.
Yeah, that's you're not. Don't switch to your camera. Just to go to the
Just
heart.
for this segment, I'm only going to use this.
It's tough for him because he now has to press 2 buttons instead of 1 there,
Okay.
and it is a see.
I mean, I can have all of us on
You
the
can
screen
even
at once.
T-bar. Oh man, this is great. I love this.
Yeah.
But we wanted to bring you some unsolicited marriage advice, part 2, because we think that marriage is very important, and also these pieces of advice are very important.
Do not speak for me, please.
I believe that marriage is important. Mike only slightly believes.
As
that
someone
it's
who's
important.
been married for 12 and a half years, like, yeah, maybe.
He's bought into the institution of marriage. So my first piece of advice to you today, sweet boy Justin. By the way, you can play along at home if you want to know if you have pieces of advice.
Give
for
me
Justin.
advice.
Yep, drop them in the comments, throw them in the chat, do the doodly doo below us, and let's go. My first piece of advice is hot off the heels of last week me telling you to make enough money to buy 2 sinks. Make enough money to buy a king size bed. It will change your life. It will.
We I like how it just goes over your face.
I do too. It's the perfect placement.
Yeah, no, keep going.
No,
keep
no,
going.
I'm feeling it.
You come back.
Hey,
There it
Yeah.
is. Cool.
We do
Now
have
I
a
can
king
drink my
size
tea.
bed.
Yeah. You have a king size bed?
Yep.
Oh.
We have a king size bed, and thanks to Mike, we have 2 sinks.
Wow. Realtor of the year.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
My second piece of marriage advice.
Yeah.
Do you have one? My second piece of
No.
marriage advice is, this is going to be a little more like on the date side, but it's okay to say, hey, let's go out for dinner. Because I think a lot of times couples get caught in this like, well, we gotta we got to cook, and then we got to save we got to pinch our pennies, we got to do this. But like, it's okay to go out to dinner. And in fact, I recommend you go out to dinner regularly, not like every single night, but like try to do it once or twice a month at least, because there's a natural sort of like melding of human hearts that happen. Even if you're just going out and like, hey, we're going to go grab Olive Garden.
All you can eat breadsticks. You take them home.
Salad and breadsticks.
Take
Olive
'em home.
Garden is actually one of our favorites.
Oh, well, there you go. So even if you go to Olive Garden, because you're here, your
So
family,
good.
or where you're there,
That's mainly why they like it.
because they family.
Yeah, they just like to be like, it's the family aspect to it.
Yeah. Another piece of advice is that when you get married, people don't tell you this. When you get married, you're not just marrying your wife; you're marrying her whole
Ooh,
family.
This is a good.
And
that's a good one.
When she's marrying you, she's not just marrying you; she's marrying your whole family. And so remember that, because there are a lot of family dynamics that will come into play, even if it's internal struggles.
Especially if and when you have kids.
Well, that was where I was going with
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Was
sorry.
especially like after you have kids, there's going to be immediate family of all ages that are going to want to smother those children, and you might not want to have some of those
With
children
love,
over.
not with like a pillow.
Sometimes.
Oh,
Depends on how they were acting.
sure.
And what age they are. We we don't advocate of smothering children here on the weekday. These
With
shows-
love.
Right.
Figuratively.
Right, with pillows.
I-
We don't
right.
advocate smothering them with pillows.
Very specifically,
Yes.
pillows. Yes.
What about you? Any pieces of marriage advice? You want me to keep going here? Because I have a couple more.
Yeah, why don't you keep going? Why don't you
Okay.
keep going? Stir the pot.
Cool. Another piece of advice is when you have children, if you have children, and when you have children, or dogs, or I know you guys are you bringing a dog? You're bringing your dog into the relationship, right?
No, that's she's staying with my mom.
You have cats though, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So
No,
nothing.
she does, and those are staying with her aunt.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So if you decide to bring other beings into the household, be it kids, parrots, dogs, cats, things like that, snakes, remember that much like the towel on the floor advice last year, or the socks on the floor advice, you have one of two choices with those animals or kids. Either feed them
Okay.
or ignore them. I can't even finish this one. I'm so sorry. No, take care of the kids. Love them, please.
Okay, I have one. I do have one.
Okay, take care of the kids.
So
and love them.
if and when, Justin, do you plan on having kids?
Yes.
Okay.
We do. Yeah.
So if you end up having a dog or some sort of pet together before you have kids, that's fine. That's cool. Try to understand that a dog is a dog.
Not a baby.
Right.
Not a human. Not a human baby.
I just think, like it.
Mr. Stuffles
And yeah.
doesn't need to be dressed up in diapers.
Sylvester the cat doesn't need to go, to Culver's
Depot.
with you guys.
Right.
It's okay.
But isn't it good practice for when we do have a kid?
It is not good practice because
It is
that
absolutely
dog,
not, because I want you, and this is I'm being serious. It's not, because that's an animal, okay? And
as we're going to talk about in a little bit, it
Right.
does not have
right.
cognition. It is a bunch of trained, learned responses.
I'm thankful. Chris and I, we had a dog before we had kids.
Did it prepare you for Caleb?
No.
Not at all.
It's not the same thing.
It is
It's
not.
literally not the
You
same
don't
thing.
take Caleb outside to poop.
And it never becomes more clear until, I feel like we did an okay job. We probably did more things with Layla, our dog. We kind of treated her like she was, our kid or something. There are some moments of that. We didn't go full on, I'm going to dress you, I'm going to take you everywhere
Feed
kind
you
of
at the
thing.
table.
Yeah, we didn't do that kind of thing. We still had some recognition that she was still a dog. But that was the only outlet for our
Sure.
parental sort of thing.
Sure.
But then literally the second we walked in the door from the hospital from bringing Caleb home, I've never had more of oh, that's just a dog. The perspective shift, light speed, how fast that perspective shifted. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have two more pieces of advice. Do you have any?
quick, no.
We're going to do this really quick. Number
Yeah.
one, don't ask your spouse to do something. Never ask your spouse to sacrifice if you would not be able to sacrifice the same thing for them. Meaning, don't ever ask your spouse to sacrifice, like, hey, if I want to take this job in a different country or different world and you weren't willing to go the same length, don't do it, because that is an unequal yoke thing. That's a true
Never done that before.
Pause for effect. Yeah. Definitely pause for effect. And the last thing is marry the person that you're going to marry for them now, not for potential later on. And that's kind of
But that's all good advice. Like, I'm looking for bad advice here.
bad advice here.
Like that's in the form of good advice, you know?
Bad advice. Make sure you leave the toilet seat up after you go, because it's real fun in the middle of the night to hear your wife splash down in the bathroom.
Splash down. Oh, hey, here's one. April Fool's Day is not funny.
No.
So, like, don't play a prank on your significant other. It will never go well.
No.
I mean, doesn't that depend on the prank, though?
No, it does not.
No, it absolutely
Trust
does
me,
not.
it
No,
does
it
not.
doesn't. No.
And the last one that I have and this is a sincere. We're gonna end on a sincere note.
Fine. That's not what the banter section's about, but that's fine. Keep going.
Fine.
Keep going. Keep going. I'll allow it. Keep going.
We talked about this a little bit last week, but I cannot impress this enough upon you. Learn your wife's love language. Learn how they want to be loved and talked to. Learn how they want to be appreciated. And then don't be afraid to vocalize how you want to be loved and appreciated. We didn't go that far last week.
Or vice versa.
Just shut up about it.
No, learn the opposite of her love language. So when you get into an argument, you know
Exactly
Yes,
which button
exactly.
to push. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to be sincere again. Go to my camera again. Thank you, Justin. Again, in all sincerity, you can be the angel or the devil on the shoulder. In all sincerity, Justin, make sure.
But I played Jesus in Godspell. I can't.
Yeah, but
Keep going.
were you sinless and perfect?
I played Jesus in Godspell.
So for a time, it's like communion.
Yeah.
Like you just put on the thing of Jesus. No, and especially with arguments, don't ever go into marriage thinking you're going to win arguments. And I don't mean that like you're always going to lose an argument, but the point of an argument is not to win. The point of an argument is to understand the other person's position. So go into it that way, not just, I'm going to be. See, look at this. He gets it. This guy gets it. Go into it understanding that, hey, I may have to take an L here, but at least I'll understand my wife a little bit more.
Man, taking an L. That's a
husband advice thing.
You gotta learn to take that L.
Gotta learn to take an L,
Yep.
and if you don't agree, then maybe sometimes just shut up.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else?
Cool.
I love you.
I
Love you.
L for love.
Love. You know, I love love.
I love love.
Yeah.
I love love.
I feel pretty good about that advice.
Yeah. Have a good wedding,
That was
Justin.
wholesome.
Good luck.
Hey, thank you.
We're gonna send you into the
Great.
nether reach. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, can we make that our thumbnail?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. We're gonna take a break because we didn't take a break last week, and we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for being a part of the weekday. I just want to let you know that Bay Hope Worship is releasing new content, new songs all the time. Make sure to head over to our YouTube, our Instagram, or our Spotify account. The links are down below in the description, and check them out.
I don't think she can do anything wrong.
Right.
And that's going to be an issue.
Yep. Oh, I know. I'm well aware.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back. Again, already in progress. I think we're just this is a new medium for us. I think we just pick conversations up in the middle and then hope people.
Is that not what we're doing already?
No, because here's what we do is instead of like the intros, like the normal intros, I want to be able to sell people extra content. So like, hey,
Right.
join our Patreon and you can get the first 5 minutes of this conversation.
And it's nothing. It's just complete garbage.
But they don't know that.
Yeah.
We're not going to release this, right? Don't let anyone know that that's what that is.
Sure.
And we're going to make millions. Yeah. We're going to buy Twitter from Elon because all they need is 43 billion now instead of 44 billion.
All right.
Welcome back. So speaking of Elon, we vowed not to bash social media today, but here we go.
It's as constant as us asking Justin about movie references.
It's death, taxes, movie references, and bashing social media. Great.
All roads.
We wanted to have a conversation today, and we wanted to involve you in this as well. And it kind of comes on the heels of what we were talking about last episode,
Yeah.
where this idea has been swirling a little bit about people and humanities and souls, and how do you deal with messy people and people that need more grace and all that other stuff. And there's this idea that is pretty prevalent in our world that you are who you are. You will never change. You're, once you, especially when you hit a certain point in your world,
Right.
or in your age or in your maturity, that you're just, that's it forever.
That's who you are.
That's who you are. That's how you dress. That's how you talk. That's how you act. And those are kind of minor things on the grander scale of you are a permanent person and nothing ever shifts. And that can be depressing. And also that can be life stealing.
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk about we want to talk about transformation. And this actually came from Mike, and I actually picked up the book this morning. Mike jumping back into Renovation of the Heart by Dallas Willard. I picked up the book, and I was in chapter 4. And actually, while you talk, I'm going to go get the book, and because I have a pull quote that I wanted to.
Okay.
But when we were talking about this in pre-production, you actually stated kind of the aim of this episode. So go for it while I go get the thing.
So I was listening to a podcast called The Holy Post, and yes, the guy who created VeggieTales has a great podcast, and I really appreciate their conversations about Christianity and really almost like evangelical cultural Christianity kind of thing. Yeah. They have a bunch of people on.
I knew you were gone, but that was just instinct.
Sky Jethani.
Yeah. So they were talking about the overturning of Roe v. Wade and kind of what that's going to do to us culturally, what that
has done to us culturally.
what that has done to us culture, what that has done to Christians' input on things in society, and how Christians have basically all been so driven towards overturning Roe v. Wade, right or wrong or whatever, that we've actually like kind of sold our soul in a lot of other ways to do this one thing. And basically the person who was talking about this, it was just like this throwaway line that got me real good. But she basically just said one of the reasons people are so embroiled over this one topic, one of the reasons there's so much opposition and division and polarization or whatever, is because people find it really hard to believe anymore that people can change. And I don't know why it hit me as hard as it did, but I was working out when I was listening to it, and it made me stop, and like I had to pause it and just think about this. And then they just kept on talking about whatever, but it was just a throwaway line. And it got me to thinking, and I started like writing some stuff down. I just said, what if the reason we are so divided is because we are so dissatisfied with how the world is? And so what if like this is actually kind of a good thing? What if this overall feeling of like things feeling like, man, this isn't how the world is supposed to be, is actually a good thing? And like, that's our common ground that we all sort of stand on. However, this is sort of where the paths diverge a little bit. And most of the time, people take the route of cynicism through their doubt and their disappointment, which can be deadly, and sort of take this hopeless route and just say like, well, that's just kind of the way the world is, and reserve themselves to thinking like nothing's ever going to change. However, isn't hope the confidence that life, the world, you and I can actually change? And we have been telling ourselves lie and lie and lie over and over and over again that like, well, we can't change. And I guess we're just going to be bitterly embroiled in conflict and opposed to each other, fighting against the thing that like we are all actually on the same page about. We're like, there's something broken and wrong with this world. And we can't figure out a consensus on the way to fix it.
There's two things as my response to start this all off. And part of this conversation is going to be a little bit theoretical, and part of this conversation is going to be hopefully intensely practical. So this is coming from the book, The Renovation of the Heart, again, by Dallas Willard. I've read through this. I've got underlines and quotes and all that, but I literally picked it up today, and my bookmark was at the start of chapter 4. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I should probably pick up there.
Yeah.
And literally the first sentence I read was,
this is how all of his books are, though. Like,
I know.
You read one line, it's like, darn, that's real good.
yeah, and I had to stop because I only got 4 pages in.
Yeah,
this
because
morning.
it's hard to read, too.
Yeah. He says, one of the amazing things about the human being is that it is capable of restoration, and indeed a restoration that makes it somehow more magnificent because it has been ruined. Mm-hmm. So he posits in the first 3 chapters that we are products of ruined souls.
Yeah.
We are products of a ruined world, and not ruined in the sense of like radical wasteland, but ruined in the sense of sinfulness and hopelessness and gracelessness.
100%.
And so later on, in a couple of chapters later, he talks about how the transformation works. And it's all about these mechanical processes of transforming the mind. And it starts with Jesus, and we'll get to that in a minute. But he talks about when you're looking through the lens of Scripture, you are reading commentaries from 2,000 years ago in a Greco-Roman world that had certain Greco-Roman characteristics. Sure. And so we have a tendency oftentimes to view those as so far away, so ancient. Or
to try and transmute all that stuff
yes.
to today.
Yeah, and like,
which
we have to.
Both are wrong.
Yes, both are wrong because humans are humans, souls are souls, transformation is still transformation. Even though it may wear different clothes, it's still ultimately the same thing from death to life.
Right.
And so he starts talking about the fact that in the Greco-Roman world, one of the remarkable changes this is Dallas Willard, quote, one of the remarkable changes brought by Jesus and his people into the ancient world concerned the elevation of hope into a primary virtue, which, okay, on its surface, like, yeah, cool.
Hope is sense.
Hope is hope.
Yeah.
He then goes on. Hope was not well regarded by the Greco-Roman world. It was thought of as a desperation measure. So hope was a desperation measure.
It was the opposite of strength.
Exactly. And while, according to the myth of Pandora's box, it may be all we have left with which to endure the agonies of life, it must be grimly held in check, or else it will give rise to vain expectations that only cause more misery.
Wow.
So that's Greco-Roman world. And then he goes on to say, Christ, by contrast, brings solid hope for humanity. Clearly, then, hope is also closely related to faith.
Yeah.
And the idea that, so we can take this out of the 65-year-old guy who's been working his whole life. You know, I start to think of my grandparents, or kind of there's this stigma of, especially boomers, where you get a little bit older, you get a little bit more miles on the tires, and you go like, I'm just never going to change. This is who I am. This is how I talk. This is what I believe. This is how I feel. This is all these things. And while there is a certain comfortability aspect and a certain respect your elders aspect, there is also the idea that you are actually genetically predisposed to be dormant. So your body, your brain, this is from Carey Nieuwhof actually this morning. He was talking to Brian Tome, who's one of the founding pastor at Crossroads Church. And he brought this up. He said, the human brain, the human body is designed to conserve calories. The human brain is designed to conserve calories.
Right.
You can go work out, you can do whatever you want, and you'll get thirsty because water is leaching from your muscles, but those calories aren't from your brain. Those calories are going to your muscles, and so that's fine. But when you start to think about tough things, when you start to think about restoration, when you start to think about complex problems, there's a reason you get hungry.
Yeah.
Because you're burning a ton of calories. And I thought that was fascinating in this conversation here. Sorry.
I think on the flip side of that, you know, like I think don't read into what I'm about to say, but like, I guess biologically I can say that because I was going to say evolutionarily, but biologically speaking, from a survival instinct, so much of human history has not had what we have. I mean, it's why people get fat. You know, it's why we have fat to store energy, because the body, like, what happens if you don't have food for a while? Like, I'm gonna store this stuff away, and so like it's really a survival mechanic, a defense mechanism. However, on the flip side of that, you know, we believe so much. Maybe that idea that like I'm supposed to conserve, when really like the body, you could argue, is made for movement. You could argue like what the body is to be in motion. And it's why healthy people move, you know? But like we were talking yesterday about the body, physiologically, biologically speaking, we have this idea entrenched in our society that once you are one way, that is the way that you are until the day that you die. But, I made the comment yesterday, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because the body actually changes every 7 years. Like every 7 years, like you have a whole new host of cells or whatever. And Justin actually said, like, I don't know if that's true.
Way to go, Justin.
Yeah. And so then I thought, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure like the idea was true. Because, cells don't last forever, and then I looked up this morning and I sent it to you guys, and it's actually every 80 to 100 days, you are a completely new human.
Your cells have all died and come back.
Wow.
Like, that is wild.
Yep.
You are constantly changing. And I think that, like, we are wired to change and to be molded and to have this elasticity to us. And so much of what the Bible talks about being wrong is a heart of stone, rigid Pharisees, rigid laws, like this inability to be flexible and pliable. I mean, God, like, how many times does God say, I don't want your regulations?
Yep.
I want your heart. And then it even says, like, God's going to, like, remove your heart of stone and give you an actual heart of flesh. Like this thing that you and I are made of, not something that is inorganic and not alive,
It's the trampoline versus the brick wall analogy that people talk about with faith. If you're
defending a wall,
if you're defending a wall, one brick,
yeah,
and the entire wall starts to come down. But if you're defending with a trampoline behind you, that trampoline can continue to take slings and arrows and things, and it will never break.
Right.
So,
well, and I think part of the reason I feel like I've been really jazzed up about this whole thing, and not to like play therapy corner or whatever.
Low battery.
Oh, thank you. Not for the weekday to play therapy corner, but
Let's do it. We can charge people $100 an hour.
I think one of the reasons. Oh, that sounds great. Patreon.
Click the link below.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons this hit me so hard is because I've probably found myself believing of myself that I am not going to change.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. Disappointments, doubts, my own cynicism. Like I think we confuse wisdom with cynicism too much. I think we confuse our life experiences, the things that have happened to us, we confuse those with like the way that the world has always been kind of thing. And now, I think that there's room for both of those things. Like I think there's ways for our wisdom to inform smart decisions and there to be some sort of discernible quality in how maybe the world is structured. But we as Christians are called to hold on to this idea, this hope that like God from the very beginning saw the fall of man and woman, of humans.
Person.
Yes. And said like, I will do whatever I can to fix this. And like, I promise you, it will not always be like this. And I think that that's, we find ourselves believing the lie over and over and over again that the world will never change. There'll always be violence. There's always going to be wars. There's always going to be famine. There's always going to be this. There's always going to be that. I think to a certain extent, that can be true. Maybe even on like a macro level, until Jesus comes back, that might always be true. But we do have control. We do have the opportunity and the ability to, like, as we bring the kingdom forward in our life, as we grow closer to Jesus, we become formed into his likeness and are bringing the kingdom forward in the world around us. Imagine if, it's the 30 by 30 vision. Imagine if a group of people, which is what the church is called to do, a group of people caught wind of this idea, this hope, got on fire for this idea that like, hey, we might not be able to solve world hunger. We might not be able to solve, this thousands of years of oppression that people have, but I can do it here and I can do it here, which I know is not like a revolutionary idea, but like, what if we actually allowed that to like really work in deep and through this? And I think for me, I hadn't even thought about that for a while. I think I had been beaten down. I've been beaten down so much over the past 2 years, especially of like, where's the bottom? Like, have we reached the bottom yet? To where we can go up kind of thing. And I think you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. You're kind of waiting for things to get worse, as opposed to being like, you know what, that's not even the things that I should be thinking about. You know, I don't even need to think the opposite of that. Like, I'm taking the third way out here, you know?
Yeah. Justin, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like from a Christian perspective, there's that. I feel like it's generally pretty well, regarded that people can change, because I mean, even in 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation.
This
the
guy.
old is gone and the new has come.
Look at this guy coming prepped with Bible verses. That a boy.
Hey, but yeah, I feel like I agree with what you were saying earlier about I feel like with as far as the world outside of Christianity goes, a lot of people do have that mindset of that, you can't change. And almost, you made the comment yesterday too, that I feel like is really truthful with how people kind of perceive it. And that you said that it's almost celebrated with
that's good.
the
That's a
fact
whole
that
other
you can't change, and the fact that you are who you are type of thing. But I feel like if you had that mindset that you are who you are and you can't change, or not necessarily that you can't change even, but that you shouldn't change.
Right.
That's assuming that you decided very young who you're going to be, and you shouldn't deviate from that.
Yeah.
I mean, can any of us say that who we were when we were younger, was our best version of ourselves?
Right.
Like,
that's good.
I don't think that that's the way to have an outlook on life.
I think that that's such a good angle about it. It's not even that whether we can or we can't.
Whether we should.
Yes, it's the fact that it's celebrated that we shouldn't, and like who's to decide that? There's that kind of thing.
Well, that's the heart of flesh versus heart of stone, right there.
Right.
Being pliable versus being just totally irreparably reprehensible, and well, maybe not reprehensible, but just stubborn.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's this rush of, which I don't think is like the worst thing in the world, of like self-actualization. And I'm going to
Gotta find myself, and that's all I'm gonna be is myself, like that.
And again, like, I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world, becoming more self-aware to who you are, your habits, kind of like Matthew says, your habits and your hang-ups, the things that you are prone to, which I think like are, to a certain extent, some of those are genetic, like we've even found that out, like alcoholism is genetic, your proclivity to those kinds of things, to some sort of addictions, are genetic. But like this I think it comes from this book, but it says transformation into Christ's image starts with this: the solution to sin nature is not inside of us. So like you cannot dig deeper to find out like, oh, I can really solve, my problem with pornography or whatever, no, the strategy for recovery is not self-actualization. Success is not about becoming more in tune with our internal desires. It's the opposite. God gives us the grace and everything necessary for change in his kingdom. For our participation, we must ask God to provide the vision to see why Jesus is good for us, have the intention to make the decision to follow him, and acknowledge the means already in place to carry out the good thing of following Jesus. That is the reliable, the biblically spiritually accurate way to change, is to see him, to take one stinking step, and then trust that those means are accurate.
So the best place to take the conversation then is the how, and you kind of already started answering the how. Like how do we? Okay, so we've all three agreed, and we're assuming that everybody listening to the Weekday has differing opinions, and I would love to hear those. But how do you start that change then? How do you start that transformation?
I mean, there's a place of humility that you have to come to. I mean, even for me. So like hearing just the someone saying a throwaway line like, "Hey, we can change." It took a humble moment for me. It's something I was not distracted. I was doing something, I was doing something, but like I'm not distracted by my kids, not distracted by any sort of work, I was in a space where I could hear it. So I was humbling myself and my surroundings. And then like I felt the conviction upon me, like I was in some way, shape, or form in tune to the Spirit, like tugging on a thread for me. And I think if it doesn't start there, it's going to be like very, very difficult for us. So like how many times I think we run to like so many different things. We run to entertainment to soothe this like inner need for us to want to figure out the world. We're doing all, we're what's the word? Not soothing, like numbing almost this need to be closer to God. It starts, you have to take one step, you got to see it. And then you do have to take like one single step towards it.
Cool. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's good what you said about kind of like humbling yourself there. Because I feel like the first step is really, humbling yourself and realizing that you probably should change. And it doesn't really matter where we are in life. There's probably something about us that if we changed, something here or something there in like whatever part of life, might be good. Like even if we stopped, talking a certain way or, just like, just something small or whatever. Like I feel like we all have something about us that it would benefit us and the people around us if we maybe change certain aspects. And that's always going to be a lifelong thing for all of us.
Yeah.
Where we're just always going to have to like change certain aspects about us. And
it's unsolicited marriage advice right there.
But I agree with what you said about humbling yourself first and realizing that,
what would you say?
There probably are things you got to change.
I want to reframe this. I've been doing a lot of work. Not a lot of work. I've been doing a lot of ministry, talking to people in areas that wouldn't particularly be considered Christian. The gamer space, the online space, the social media space. Obviously, I've been doing that for three plus years now, but also like with this like gamer church that I'm helping out with a couple other little social media projects I've been doing on the side. And there's not just the given, like the culture now has shifted way far away from Christianity. And with that, we know that, like that's a no duh. But how do you tell somebody that they need to change and need to take a step towards Jesus when the acknowledgement is not even, man, there's something wrong with me. So not even the
right. Yeah.
Let's not even put Jesus in the equation.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Because what'll automatically happen is somebody on one side of again, going back to politics, because everything now comes back to politics.
Right.
If you are talking to somebody who's conservative, they're going to call you woke.
Right.
And if you're talking to somebody who's liberal, they're going to call you one of those fundies.
Yeah.
Fundamentalists. And so how do you, and this doesn't have to be answered. This is just kind of the rhetorical, like, how do you do that? Because it's a case-by-case basis. It's a listening, it goes back to our last episode of that's a messy thing. Like at our core, we're all messy people. But there's a real question that we need to start, as the church, we need to start getting outside of ourselves a little bit more and realizing like, hey, the big bright world out there no longer looks at us as the light and has not for a long time.
Right.
And even though we feel like, well, we've got the answer, man, it's Jesus. Like, okay, but we just sat in a meeting talking about Christmas, heaven forbid, but we were talking about Christmas in July, and we kept coming back to the how.
Yeah.
Like, how do we transform? How do we change? How do we do these things? And like in church, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Because like we know the step is, well, just believe in Jesus and receive him as your Lord and Savior. And then like you're in. And then everything else is a systematic building block of thing. But like
can be. Yeah.
It can be. Yeah. But like, how do you tell somebody on the outside of
I think
Christ?
I don't know if that is, maybe that might be one of the things that we might get wrong the most. Is
the methodology or
just pointing at the darkness and calling it dark.
Yeah.
As opposed to walking into the darkness with a light. And I think that it's the same way the Holy Spirit convicted me is the same way that the Holy Spirit is going to convict somebody else. It's going to knock on that door, and I might be able to set up a space in an encounter, maybe set the table a little more for somebody else. But in general, it's not me. No, just like I can't be the person who changes my life 100%. The same is true for somebody else. I can't also be the person that changes your life 100%.
Yeah.
That is the work of God's grace. And I don't think that's a cop out. I think
no, it's not. It's not a cop out. It's just there is so when you go into some of those spaces and you're like let's say I'm sitting in a chat somewhere and I'm talking to somebody and it's an obvious troll that somebody's going to start to light me up, but that conversation then can turn very quickly if somebody's trying to troll me about Jesus and then is actually interested. You'd be amazed how quickly those conversations turn.
I totally,
especially online, because there's no need for deliberation.
Right.
It's just everything's there in front of you, and then you can immediately ask a question. If you don't like it, you just bounce.
Right.
Like you just get out of that chat. But a lot of times people will hang around and they'll ask questions, and most of them are like, okay, where'd Cain's wife come from? Dumb questions that people have been asking. But sometimes you'll happen upon that question of, okay, but why? Like what? The why of Jesus is fairly simple.
Right.
As long as you understand like the love story that God's trying to tell through his son Jesus. But the why for people that are not on the inside of Jesus, they're going to go, well, why does this matter to me? Why should I change my life? Why should I have to give up the things that I love doing for this book of rules, for this book of regulations?
That's a great question.
For this, and I mean, that's what ministry is, but that's why I want to have this conversation, because the very practical aspect we bump up against happens all the time. And it's like, how do you, and that's kind of, I'm a pastor and I still despair at that. I've been a pastor for 13 years and I still despair at the thought of like, I don't know sometimes. Like I don't know how to answer that.
Right.
And I think it's okay to say I don't know, but at the same time, it's not.
Right.
Like I have the answer to change and the answer to transformation.
Right.
So this is me processing online.
No, well, I mean, I think
on the podcast.
that's all really good. And that's the questions, those are the type of questions we need to be answering, not, hey, what does our government need to be mandating?
Ooh.
Or, hey, what does...
you want to rail on that? Do you want to talk about that?
No, I
Oh.
don't. But, like, those...
Get us clicks.
Like, that's the type... And, it's unfortunate that some people would say people are going to come to know Jesus through A, B, and C, as opposed to people are going to come to know Jesus through how we love God and through how we love other people.
It's an experiential relationship.
And, like,
it's the joy thing from a couple weeks ago.
And it's so funny how like our conception of what is successful is basically like what's big, and like really Christianity at its heart is like meant to be lived in community with others.
Very small.
Yeah, and like communal, so it's not like just a one person thing. It can't be a one person thing. But I also don't know if it's a 20,000 person thing.
Right. So you're saying tear down the mega churches?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Brick by brick.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Blood against the wall.
I'm just saying, I think if you were to like hide or put transformation in hyperdrive, it happens through community. So
that's good. That's a pull quote. Justin, can we pull that?
Let's pull it.
Okay, good. Speaking of pulling it, we got to pull the plug on this episode because we've been going. You see what I did there? We've been going a little bit. We would love to hear your thoughts on transformation. Thanks for sticking with us if you made it all the way to the end as we kind of obliterated some conversational topics about transformation. And go read Renovation of the Heart.
Please,
it's a tough,
good gracious.
It is a tough read. I am not going to, there's no bones about it, but everything that Dallas Willard wrote is two things. It's two sides of a coin. The first side of the coin being it is brilliant. It's like the most wise thing you'll ever read.
Yeah.
And the other side of that coin is holy crap. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I love words
because it works on you. Like,
yeah.
And if you want to read it correctly, you must read it slow.
Yeah.
And but it's I found we're rambling here, but it's not like C.S. Lewis where like it's legitimately hard to read.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to read in the sense that like you read one paragraph and if you think about it and if you let it work on you, it will do a number on you.
The best thing that ever happened to Dallas Willard's writing was these chunks.
Yeah.
Here, the editor, whoever the editor was for all of his books, basically breaks everything up into like 5 to 8 paragraph chunks and gives them a title.
Yeah.
Like there's subheading upon subheading, and that's the way to do it, because you read an entire subheading and then you go like, that's why I only got 4 pages, well, like 3.5 pages this morning during my quiet time, because I was like, I'm like journaling, like frustrated, like, oh my gosh, I gotta figure that, I gotta do this.
It unlocks something inside of you.
Yep,
and not very many people do that.
Yeah.
As well as Dallas Willard
Absolutely.
can do.
Modern day theologian, rest in power, baby.
Yeah.
We love you all. Thanks so much for joining us here on the weekday. Say congratulations to Justin in the chat, in the comments, because 2 days after this published, our good boy's getting that ring on his finger.
Yeah,
He's gonna wear it like this.
Yeah.
So happy honeymoon. We love you. We'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Bay Hope TV. Be sure to like and share these videos with your friends, as it really does help this channel out. And be sure to subscribe for more Bay Hope TV content. As always, thanks for watching.